the president's say na parliament. But just before I ask for a precursor remark, make we quickly first join with parliamentary correspondent Joseph Johnson, will be in a parliament with the rest of the team members then, but he filing this report about the president's State of the Nation address in parliament.
Number one arrives in the Chamber of Parliament, a house he is not strange to, as the diplomatic and consular corps look on. The absence of 53 APC MPs still creates a vacuum in the House, and number one re-echoes the importance of cohesion in politics.
Today we are gathered here to reflect on the importance of cohesion in politics and to recognize the paramount significance of unity and collaboration in our noble endeavor to serve our people.
Using the current parliament as an example for the urgent need for dialogue.
In this very parliament, where no party has attained a two-thirds majority, the need for dialogue and negotiation resonates with utmost urgency. We must find common ground within the political divides that exist. Our quest for power must never overshadow our deep-rooted desire to be a government that genuinely serves the people.
He urged for the nation to be put first above party affiliation.
The path to greatness lies in putting the nation's interests first, transcending party lines, and forging alliances beyond political affiliations.
President Bio committed to work with the parliament and all branches of government.
On behalf of the executive, I pledge to have a healthy relationship with this esteemed parliament and all branches of government. Together, we shall strive to achieve our shared goals over the next 5 years, remaining steadfast in our commitment to democracy, peace, and the rule of law.
But he was stern on not taking the peace and stability of the country for granted, referencing countries within the sub-region.
Let us never take the peace and stability we currently enjoy for granted. Look around us, both on our continent and worldwide, and we witness the devastating consequences that unfold when political actors fail to resolve their differences with maturity and respect for the rule of law.
One of the commitments of President Bio is to establish a National Electoral System Review Committee to do the following.
The June 24th multi-tier elections identified some logistical limitations that were, however, assessed not negatively impacting the overall income of the multi-tier elections in Sierra Leone. To improve ECSL's continued planning and conduct of transparent and fair elections, the National Electoral Systems Review Committee will be established to assess the planning and management of the 2023 electoral cycle, to review the prevailing legal framework, related institutional and operational arrangements, and local and international observer missions report. To propose key reforms for institutionalizing the recommendations to enhance the operations of the entire electoral architecture in Sierra Leone. The National Electoral Systems Review Committee, with a broad membership of government, development partners, civil society, and professional organizations, will be led by the Honorable Vice President and supported by an ad hoc technical secretariat.
President Bio also used the occasion to re-emphasize his Big Five, namely Feed Saloon, Human Capital Development, Youth Empowerment Scheme, Technology and Infrastructure Initiative, and revamping the public service architecture in the next 5 years. Joseph Johnson, AYV News, Freetown.
Right, many thanks indeed to Joseph Johnson for putting that report together on the state opening of the 6th Parliament of the Second Republic by President Julius Maada Bio last Thursday. And as I mentioned earlier, we've been joined by the Minister of Information and Civic Education, Chernor. Good evening and welcome to AYV on Sunday.
Good evening, thanks for having me.
All right, Let's start off for obvious reasons. I mean, yes. Looking at, waiting the president don't talk in the parliament. I mean, there were a couple of things he mentioned in his speech, but overall, how would you assess the statement of the president?
Plenty, thank you. A big opportunity for we review within the first gentleman of the country, they say. Right. Where anytime we talk, everybody they pay attention because it guide how we run the country. And this one for his second time, now the first, we go say big statement this we use for open parliament. And we all supposed for take note because especially as government functionaries, you look at the existing laws then, but also you look at policy statements where the person where you run the country, they make for guiding SSF own activities. Even from the reports where a man from Parliament give, a focus attention on key things right. And ways so important where the president say. And key among them, they reflect on national cohesion, unity, and things like that. So when you go back and look at the committee we say them for establish, then two things then they alone for the work women commission they do, they're so vital. And one for say, for this sixth parliament, the president is start on a very strong note where the focus now for like bring the country together. And so we in our NCD, we appreciate this kind of approach. Yesterday, somebody they asked me when I did comment on the issues. They say, if you're not too late. I said, well, they can tell me say better late than never. Because they possibly try to compare the tone of the president in the last 5 years and starting this term, how we start them. For we they push democracy go before, now then kind of voice one for Yeri, now then kind of told you one for Yeri, not so the one way it look like say this now the country go turn about. We don't want that kind of thing, but for this one, who's the president start so, they continue for encourage that make we maintain this kind of tone, and whoever they around the president, whether as a minister or as an advisor, make we continue for push in this kind of direction. But overall, I don't say we'll get time for looking to the nitty-gritty of the thing, but overall, we say now a fine start, and we hope and pray say we go continue like this.
So Ibrahim, looking at some of the things the president mentioned, I mean, he talked about cohesion, national cohesion, the need for dialogue amongst political parties and the political players, especially the reason for the establishment of parliament. We say parliament not just a house for make laws. I mean, we all understand, say, parliaments not the well. We say we always draw the water they use for nurture with democracy, and that is very, very vital. They also talk about the gains we don't make as a country in terms of women's representation. They talk about these 5 big game changers now in manifesto we promise. So there are a couple of things we mentioned. So if we put all of those things into consideration as against waiting really to happen, where would you situate the speech of the president?
No, I think like what you Reverend say, that speech really different significantly from many other speeches so done. See, not just from him, but from previous presidents. For me, now the brevity, it not be too long.
Right.
And I mean, it reflects a lot of things have changed. In terms of any personnel around them. Strangely, not getting advisors right now. They get a fairly new team. In previous administrations, 17 people, now they not come back as ministers. That's a long list. The tone different.
Right.
He recognized the role of parliament and the role of the voices, the aspirations of the people, and charged parliamentarians say their decisions what government they do for reflect the voices, the concerns of the people. They talk about the need for negotiation, dialogue. Democracy, obviously, they call for banter, disagreement, different opinions. If we all agree on one thing, we not forget elections now, because obviously people and they not go ever elect you, Samuel. If you stand for election 500 times, they not go elect you, then go prefer reverend. But that's the whole concept of democracy is founded on the human nature. You get too close. Today you decide now this green, yellow, blue, red, now the way, and not that. So if you not get an atmosphere where they really nurture, encourage, and protect that whole decision-making process, is bad. Which is why, again, I join Reverend for saying he has started off on a very positive note, where they really sound the point that hopefully APC take their seats in Parliament, and we'll get the Parliament to go really encourage dialogue, negotiation. As I say a few days ago, there's no point for letting the majority ride roughshod over the minority, because at the end of the day, it's one government, it's the people of a country. Everybody in view important. Bring all of those views, distill the important points, and make sure the government decisions based on that. So I have to say that on the whole, it was a good thing, and again, because of discussion, we'll talk about the specific issues we talk about, but it's really important to also point out that I'm happy that he reflected on the elections and the disagreement and the concerns, and they take steps for address some of their concerns, including the logistical challenges where ECSL face and some other concerns. I hope say the mandate of that committee, you understand, not going to be just limited to waiting the president don't say. Then we'll get the liberty, as it were, for expand the scope of that committee, for look at other issues will arise. But one final thing, and because this is really close to my heart, this is something that we've worked on for the last 10 years, the constitutional review process. He talked about that and hopefully, and that was when we was talking about the public service, restructuring the public service, because delivery really critical. Everything that we do, all these ministers, they may have the brightest ideas, but if you have a public service system, civil servants, permanent secretary, and all the other personnel in other ministries, if they deliver, you are going nowhere, which is why, and he said that hopefully the constitutional review process will help address some of that. And it's something that I think is one of the low-hanging fruits. I really want us to get onto that almost immediately for make sure we get that out of the way. But of course, we urge the APC for take their seats in Parliament and other governance places for let we push that process forward.
All right, let we get the precursory remark from the Minister of Information. So Chernor, the president has been widely acclaimed for the fact that many people say, oh, this is the shortest speech in the history of this country. And the precision in the speech, the things he mentioned, the tone, many people say, well, he is setting out the agenda for cohesion, because this is what is expected from the Fountain of Honor, the man who bears the greatest responsibility. I mean, his head carries the crown. So, I mean, with that tone being set, and people like you coming around the government and working in the government, where do you see that speech putting the vehicle of governance at this point?
Thank you so much. And I mean, first thing is for Canada show in my new capacity.
Right.
So I want to say thank you to AYV for inviting me as Minister of Information and Civic Education. I think it's important for say that if you don't pay attention, the president's not start for set the tone at Parliament. When they announced the 60%, the president said something. It was a very conciliatory tone. When the president, they announced him as the full winner, he invited his opponents and all Sierra Leoneans for join him and say, this country now we all get him. He set the tone then. I think the state's opening of Parliament now be the crown in the journey. Because as Allman say, when he announced in conclusion, everybody applauded. With man and say brevity is the soul of wits. brevity. And this president, you know, in this in second time, don't make one thing very clear.
Which is?
That it's about delivery, that it's about action, and that he's a statesman. He's looking at a legacy. This is a man if you look at in life and in life journey, he's always been committed to democracy. He came to power through, of course, the barrel of the gun back in the day, but in an unprecedented step in the 90s, at a time when military rulers and all they say no. This is a man who came to power 3 months to dates that had already been set for elections. He went ahead with those elections, even though he'd been under immense pressure. So he take that reputation the way some do ascribe as a father of democracy very seriously. And he look at this country, he's the fountain of honor and the papa of the country. And he say that day in a parliament, peace, tranquility, justice for we all is more important than any partisan. He even talk to your party people then. He said we have a divided government. We don't get 2/3. He said, therefore, we need to extend an arm for all work together. So you're absolutely spot on. He also, and it's like a point where I think a lot of people don't pay attention to. The president don't appoint an incredibly inclusive cabinet. George na peace me study. You judge a man not by just what he say, but by what he do. This in cabinet is incredibly inclusive and reflective of the demography and other identity than us alone. We get people from all over, from the north, east, west, whatever. Any identity you think of, president appoints them in all the appointments here we make. So he's signaling, he's saying that these things that I've been saying, I mean them. And I'm reaching out to the one that we feel aggrieved right now, say, no vex, you forget, say, Salon. Now we all get them. And that the only country this will we get. So I think any Sierra Leonean will pay attention to that speech. Not just for commend His Excellency, but for be proud that we get a statesman who will make statesmanly move them in this second dispensation we get.
Right. Now we need to go into some of the things that the president mentioned in details. But just before we do that, the first thing we get for look at now, the national cohesion, peace, and how do we have an inclusive and engaging governance system that is not just of the SLPP in Parliament, for example. So let we go back to Parliament and join Tony Sawyer, one of we parliamentary correspondents. We do a story around the opposition, especially Honorable Mohamed Bangura.
President Bill formally opened the 6th Parliament of the Second Republic of Sierra Leone today, addressing MPs, various MDGs, and Sierra Leoneans. In his address, the president highlights and emphasizes his Big Five.
First and foremost, fields alone will ignite agricultural productivity, safeguard food security, and foster inclusive economic growth. Human capital development with a deliberate focus on gender equality will nurture the skills required for the industries of the 21st century. The Youth Employment Scheme will unleash a focused initiative to create abundant job opportunities, providing our young talents with a platform to flourish and contribute to our nation's development. The Technology and Infrastructure Initiative will serve as an engine for sustained economic growth.
Honorable Mohamed Bangura, the only APC member of parliament in the House, highlights on forgiveness as one of the major setbacks in the country.
I would say the problem we have in Sierra Leone, people not putting things behind. And we don't get elections. People and for land for put things behind. As long as we don't get elections, either way, we have a president, the forming cabinet, today state opening of parliament, which means government is working. I call on the APC, brothers and sisters, that let us forge ahead. It's only when we forge ahead now we will make progress.
Sylvia Blyden, who is also one of those who witnessed the occasion, says,
I think that was the best part of his speech, especially the area where he says people should put their ego aside and work for the stability of the country, given what is happening in the neighborhood in the West Africa sub-region. I think that was the best part of his speech, because Sierra Leone right now, we have been blighted by what is not an issue, and it has become an issue. And what am I talking about? We're talking about a bunch of politicians who have come together and created an issue where there is no issue. What do I mean? Our laws in Sierra Leone are so clear. If you have a question about the electoral process, you have a question about how the elections went, you compile your evidence and you take it to the law courts. And then you ensure that the court listens to your evidence and either overturn the elections or uphold the elections. That has not been done. Instead of that, we have people now creating a non-issue where there is no issue. In other words, using their ego. And for me, I'm here as a member of the All People's Congress. That's why I came and I made sure, I just arrived last night, I made sure I found my APC badge today so that I would be here in my full capacity as an APC member and speak to Sierra Leoneans to know that what is happening is a non-issue, is being elevated to the status of an issue.
Speaking on the way forward, she says,
government has to realize that beyond that faction that has hijacked the APC, beyond the hijackers, there is another APC of progressive voices like Sylvia Olayinka Blyden. They have to reach out to us because we were bullied, we were sidelined, we were not given the opportunity to take part in the electoral process that brought the APC de facto leadership. So the government has to look beyond the Samora Kamara and Esbai Kuroma faction, the jihadist faction, and look at us, the progressive people in the APC. Then we can have a proper national dialogue. But if they continue to just send in delegations to go talk to Anes Baikoroma, to talk to Samura, and then they leave out a huge chunk of the sidelined APC members, they will continue to fail and fail and fail.
The political dilemma in Sierra Leone remains a puzzle as different views spring from political players. However, it is the hope of many that a dialogue comes in to address the impasse. Samuel Tony Sawyer, AYV News, Freetown.
All right, that plenty thank you to Samuel Tony Sawyer for where you put the report there for we together. So, Reverend, first off, let me start off with the call to have an inclusive governance structure. We go cultivate development at the end of the day for Sierra Leone. The president talked about how, there should be a space for dialogue, for engagement, because if you say that's what mature democracy requires. If we're able to put we differences aside, let's come to the table, let's talk, let's negotiate. And since the election results were announced, we don't see not only Honorable Mohamed Bangura from the APC go on the first day, subscribe to the oath, participate in the election of the speaker, and has been participating in the dealings of parliament. The rest of 53 members, will not still get a decision, since when they make a position, say they are not participating in any form of local governance in this country until their demands are met. With that, and the president make a very clear say, no political party not able to secure 2/3 majority. So if there are critical issues, for example, entrenched clauses in the constitutions, we need amendments. How do we deal with all of those issues? Like, so maybe they talk about the constitution. We know, see, we had one we don't talk about. We need for review, and we need a new constitution and all of that. But still, with the absence of 53 members of parliament, what does that speak to in terms of advancing our fledgling democracy and having an inclusive structure?
Again, plenty thank you. The situation as it is, I don't know if on our reports I just know at the end, they use an expression, they talk about political dilemma.
Yes.
That is where we find ourselves as a nation. And, interesting how things can play out in the political arena. We say, everybody they say, waiting is incorrect. Right in waiting are they propose. But the one thing we probably will need for established family, we all, no matter how they think about the situation for say, we for follow due processes for get things done. When that happens, you are positioning your country for be strong and firm on what you call the rule of law. We're so important for push democracy business go before. So for we coming from an institution where they promote democracy, that is one thing we want to make everybody in a salon know. Whether you deal with the ruling government or you deal with the opposition, we make every effort. In this kind of situation, we get this push and pull. This one is saying, I'm right. This one is saying, no, you're wrong. But we do our best for follow due processes, maintain law and order, ensure say the law we take them as being supreme. The president has made certain proposals. They are fine, but we need to move beyond the step of just talking about them. Now this one for do, now so for do them, but we take tangible steps, concrete steps for actually address them, especially in the area of Usai, we for come together, national unity, cohesion, for collaborate, for negotiate, for all of them things and they're so fine.
What could possibly be their steps that they will not wait for take now?
Samuel, APC has a structure, and it's a registered political party. We all know the leadership. Let's deal with them directly. In fact, some of the concerns with some people they raise say, they want for employ, divide and rule. But such a means will not work. It will create a lot of problems. You see, Mare Bangua, people like him bold step we take. But within the context of him particularly, he's a pariah. He's a loner. But once a situation, because when we talk about realistic national unity and cohesion, but we avoid that kind of situation. They will say one good person who can say, okay, me, they make mine. These are Sierra Leoneans, SLP, APC people, are convinced they can able to talk to them. With that notion and understanding, say, when you make your request, not so because you make the request, they will give you them. If you not take the route of the law, forget a legal redress to the issues, the only last resort you get now political settlement. And in that political settlement, the understanding they say nobody gets 100%.
You know, without going into the legal platitudes, the APC not gonna court as a party, no member not gonna court, and when you talk about democracy, you also talk about the rule of law. And you cannot talk about the rule of law and avoid the judiciary.
Definitely.
Established. So then rule the judiciary.
So
out.
now, you see, now the two-pronged approach to resolving the issues here. So
Right.
definitely it's a political problem. But one route you can take, now for going to court, I'm not satisfied, I'm not convinced about this, something wrong, let the court decide. Whether in your favor or against you, the court should decide. And every civilized country, that is what should be the approach. If you even take political settlement, you still for member for follow due process. And both sides, everybody concerned, the SLPP party that is now in power, for make sure say everything that is done, due processes are followed. Even with APC, that the same thing we say, because we don't want a situation where go happen tomorrow by before we regret say, why will we do this? Why will not be do this? So me go continue for appeal say we have to follow the due process, but in the aspect of the practical reality, for now, focus attention on the political route. When I am available now, because the legal route, they refuse to take it.
The step where the president, just quickly before I move over to Tommy, the step where the president say, then they take, would that pacify the APC in the sense, you talk about political settlement. The president announced, firstly, the APC say beget concerns with projection at talent centers. That we're not able for project the thing, and the ECSL will come out say the figures are too many. This also like anyone can buy election winner from one constituency we get and we've been project them. They say we need results by polling station. That again is where one of the problems lie. So if the president come now and say, I think, there were logistical challenges. Though those challenges, no negatively impact the outcome of the elections, but I think there should be a committee where for audit the systems, make recommendations, and see how we go better improve them. Should that pacify the APC?
I'm not a member of the APC, so I don't know what.
You're an expert in democracy.
Respond to that. But honestly, that for me, in the absence of any other offer, is a very fine offer. Now, probably what we need for look into, for me to build trust and confidence, for open up the system such that inclusive, forget all of the players concerned. But there is one proposal where the government, where President already don't put before, that committee, what's the name again? The National Electoral System Review Committee.
Right.
It said it will be headed by the Vice President. With all due respect, the President has made a public statement. At times it can be difficult for reversal, but I will appeal. So say, in the best interest of what you call lasting solution to this problem, don't ask somebody when I player for being a referee. Get somebody. We know it might cost this country a lot of money, but get somebody we know affiliated to any of the political parties. Somebody who is a professional in that particular area. If possible, take that person from outside. We're not the kind of cry down we compete for it. We're all Sierra Leoneans. But our situation is so, all man they point finger at all man. Get somebody.
By default, the vice president is a suspect, him being the deputy leader of the SLPP, you're saying.
Whichever way you talk about, you must get people who raise that concern.
Right.
So get somebody where they come and head that particular committee, which the idea is a very fine one. In fact, it is interesting to note this. Since this whole saga started, when NCD they make a statement, that is one of the recommendations they make, say, let's review our electoral process. And so we in an institution, we're so happy. Of course, we don't do with background work, we don't run across to the different political parties. Yes, right. In fact, I go announce to this forum, say, we don't even see SLPP. Now APC get challenged because when somebody vex, anybody say for what they carry around you point finger at them. And for now, we'll talk about certain things that will happen, but we are making our moves. And so this announcement by the president say, we set up this committee, for which it's a welcome idea. Right. But now, even as we kind of initiate that kind of conversation, we continue for appeal, say, get a different referee. We go come in and make sure, say, at the end of the day, everybody is brought on board. And then we get an outcome. We will be trusted. Where if the other side self now begin the drag foot, people let's go vex.
Okay. Let's bring in Tommy. Tommy, you don't listen to Reverend on the issue of national cohesion, unity, oneness for a nation like Sierra Leone. We, for many political pundits, we face with political quagmire, or should I say governance challenges, as then they push themselves to we every now and then. How should we handle all of these emerging challenges in the face of, this request we will get for Develop Salone, forget an inclusive governance structure where the opposition does say, no, I'm not going to participate. You guys keep doing what you're doing. And the president make it very clear that you guys are needed. We need you to make things move forward. The development of this country are we all interested. So how do we deal with that?
No, obviously, it's an awkward, difficult situation. But I can always like for say this. There's no vacuum even in nature, not even in politics. So there's a government in place. The unfortunate thing, I should say, in all of this is we lost them from the Constitution to the Public Elections Act. All the laws then say, if you are aggrieved, if you have complaints, go to the court. The whole thing about political action, as Reverend they talk about, there is nothing in the laws that give you what they call political action. The decision by the party for saying this is our decision, but there is no, it's not a route to resolve any concerns about elections. The provision with the laws and provide for, with the laws that make now that you will go to court. Unfortunately, we as citizens, as voters, as the people of this country, we've been deprived of the right to actually see evidence. And that would have been, for me, the best thing for let the opposition APC do, so that we all go say, yes, they carry the evidence in the court. Even if, as some go and say, the court no, give them a favorable decision, the court of public opinion go there on the side. And there's posterity. And we go, no matter how many years, we will always come back to that and change the laws based on that. But they have not done that. Now, that so-called political action, you understand, nobody wins. The country doesn't win, APC doesn't win, nobody wins, unfortunately. There's a government, and that government not going to stop for, not going to say, Lord, wait, say APC ready before we ready. No. They've appointed ministers, they don't approve supplementary budget. Government is going on. So the best way out of this, in my opinion, is, as he has suggested, all the demands APC don't make, and the other day I said it, some of the demands are obviously not achievable. Resignation, as I've always maintained, is a personal decision. That is why in my more than 11, 12 years of activism, I know one day call for anybody resignation. The person I appoint can sack him. But if he say don't do something it's so bad, let resign. I never do that. You can't call for the resignation of the CJ. He's not going to resign just because you've said that. Not even in the Electoral Commission. It's not going to happen. Let's put forth some more realistic demands and make sure that we all, as citizens, as civil society, there's a National Commission for Democracy who all can rally around those realistic demands. And some of the demands, so maybe they suggest, now they come out in a way or two in the president's statement. Say, yes, the 2020 election wasn't perfect. Let's admit that. It wasn't perfect in many ways. The 2018 election wasn't perfect either. The 2012 election wasn't perfect either. The 2007 election wasn't perfect either. Many imperfections across. But the goal is every electoral cycle, one for build on, you understand, and we to learn and review the laws. And you have to give credit to the ECSL. The recommendations of the different election observer missions in 2018, they take them on board, and we review some of the electoral laws. We give the Public Elections Act 2022. If the concerns or the major concerns coming out of the 2020 election about projecting the tallying system, we can go back and resolve that and make sure it's step by step. You understand? That's an opportunity that the APC gets, but they can only make that happen if they come back in the parliament and rally CSOs and rally the other government institutions and rally international partners, right? And make sure that they happen. But staying out is not going to solve the problem. It's only going to make things worse. And I keep reminding APC and everybody that, listen, people voted for you. And by the way, the concerns now about the presidential election, right? We haven't had concerns about the parliamentary. Or even if there are, it's not the most, it's not a major concern. Local councils. So APC might have lost the presidential election, but they win seats in parliament. They win local council elections. They win seats at different levels. So the people who voted for the APC representatives deserve to be represented. Now, that is not to minimize their concerns. My point is, they may have very genuine or legitimate concerns, but the best way to resolve those concerns is not to stay out. And I say that to have regard to the need, as Reverend say, for law we get a genuine process in place for bring them back on board. But they're not, if they say, if I want to shake your hand, if I unclench your fist. If you box your hands, so no matter how much overtures everybody make, Reverend hint at the fact that efforts have been underway. Then need for step back and realize at the end of the day, it's about the country, it's about, it's not just a responsibility on the part of government. Of course, I believe that government has to take the lead, but if government take the lead, either through directly by the president or people where they work for government, they serve for, lose body as it were, and come to the table and let's resolve this so that we will move together as a collective.
In terms of representation, when you mentioned the people deserve to be represented because they're voting members of parliament, especially the one that we not agree, go and subscribe to the offer, go for represent them. Now, then some people and they don't say, one of them, lawyer Usman Timbo, for example, we put a public statement, say, and then very people and then tell them, say, we not go, so they don't want to go against the voice of the people we vote them in. Again, in all of the recommendations we don't come out after the elections, I have not seen any that from the elections observers we recommend, for example, say, a nation like Sierra Leone, we always get this issue after elections, especially when the opposition always feels saying I go win or not to go win. We don't get to say, parties and they deny results every now and then in elections. Is it time that we also look at the need for a transition law where perhaps go guide we say, because we get this, the laws is so ambiguous that you're pronounced winner today, this very minute, if there is chance the next minute you'll be sworn in. There's nothing wrong with that. And so there's no breathing space for look at or reflect on things that might have gone wrong, things that might have changed the outcome of the elections. Is that something that we should also take into consideration, especially as we talk about reforming the laws, the constitution, and all of that?
Absolutely. It's within one of we own, even with recommendations for the whole CRC process. We think that there is a need for some lame duck period, right? Give like 3 months. We'll go allow any election-related issues to be resolved and all of that. But when we say that, we also remember say. The most important thing is for strengthening with judiciary.
Right.
Let the judiciary remain independent. Even if you swear in president today, 3 months later, if the evidence is strong enough, they can rule say, yes, we need fresh elections, right? So, and by the way, the one thing where in all of this discussion, in all of this controversy, the one thing that doesn't get said often and important that we remind people that when they follow them discussion, and that before the elections, pool after pool, show say the president the lead. After the election, even the new data, and this is why most people don't talk about it, even the new data talks say the president lead. The presidential election.
Yeah.
Nobody has said, oh, Samra Kamara win, they're taking victory, then give other person. Nobody has said that.
The APC has said that.
Yeah, no, that's not true. It's not supported by at least the evidence that is in public.
Right.
And when I say that, then deprive we of that right for see the evidence. This is the point.
Yeah.
This is the point. They're not share the evidence with the court because they're not go court. But even with the public, I have not seen anything there. That's the biggest, this whole crisis where they talk about this whole thing about legitimacy, we have seen nothing. Put that out there in the public. Even if you not go court, there's a court of public opinion. Share that with us. And we will read it, we will review it, and come out with. But you have not said that. What is in the public domain? This is what I'm talking about. There is not even the new data talks say the president lead. The controversy now, according to new, get 55% threshold. You understand?
Right.
Not to justify anything, but just to make the point that we're not for the taken discussion that too far and deprive we now of the evidence where you get to even that 56% or so they announced in not reach them. We have not seen that evidence.
Yeah.
In the absence of that evidence, we can only go by what the ECSL has released. And if you had gone to court, the court for don't get an opportunity for make a pronouncement on that. So that is why I disagree with the decision of the APC for not go court, because it's made it so much difficult for even the citizens for know that for believe. It's the ECSL, but of course I'll give the benefit of that to ECSL because they don't put it out there.
Yeah.
It's APC not shared than the 823. So that's the problem. But that is now, unfortunately, as they will say, or fortunately, what's under the bridge. What will they try for do now is, how do we make sure that 2028 is much better than 2023?
Right.
And this is why hopefully we'll all go get it term. And that committee, I have to go back to that committee the president talked about. Reverend thinks so for bringing international people. I disagree with him 100%. What I believe is we get credible people in there. Again, the vice president may be chairing that committee, but I believe we get, and there will be room for development partners, right? There will be room for civil society, there will be room for, and of course, I hope the opposition, of course, will have representatives on that committee, you understand? Then we sit down and review the issues step by step and reflect those recommendations in our laws so that whoever they run 2020 elections, so that now Mohamed Kone or the entire commission, they will go by then principles. And then now, you don't even have to wait until results are announced. If you realize that there is step A, B, where the Electoral Commission does veer from, you can run to court and seek an injunction restraining them from even announcing the results, saying that, and there will be objectively verifiable evidence that they not go by their steps and that's what we need. Maybe the law, of course, the volume of the public elections are big, but law simplifies so that everybody knows that these are the steps, what they take from the district level to the regional level to the national level. That's what we need. But right now, unfortunately, we can't reverse what we have.
All right.
What we need to do now is to learn from what happened in 2023 and make sure it's 2028 much better.
Let's bring in the minister. In the defender now, this net for the government. Looking at the things mentioned, Reverend talked about how, it is time we move beyond just the words. Let's now start taking concrete steps in addressing some of these issues. One of which the president don't say, we have to ensure that we set up a National Electoral Systems Review Committee. We're going to look at the operations of ECSL, but also the legal framework where they govern the entire electoral landscape. Now, is that anything that would actually create some sense of hope? For example, for people that we feel say, the system is being influenced, the system is being interfered with, and at the end of the day, the system just plays for those in the system.
Very interesting, this conversation, because I think, I want for the fumble and us get the right message. The committee, not they review the election. The notion say vice president na referee and player, with respect, Reverend, is not even close. Because this is not so about for check the number, who for the win, who for the win. That's not what this committee is about. The president was very clear. And I go make reference to his speech 65.
Go ahead.
He said the committee will get two fold objective. One, now for review the prevailing legal framework, related institutional and operational arrangements, and local and international observer mission reports. That's number one.
Yeah.
You don't need outside person for can do that day. We are Sierra Leoneans. We all can do that. You can create a system we all get the report and lady will review, and then the second thing we say for when they say propose recommendations for look BNO. Now for go before, not so. It say for propose key reforms for institutionalizing the recommendations the way they already make. So EU, Qatar, local, new, they all will not make recommendation. It's saying allow propose key reforms for enhance the operations of the entire electoral architecture. Important way, my brother Ibrahim Tomi just say is, if we want to be intellectually transparent to the people of this country, anybody who lost election as Salondo always complain. Right. As you lost, not so. As you lost, problem this day. We get as a country the means by which we adjudicate election disputes. And by the way, that means that they are agreed ahead of time. Everybody who participates by this election, be understand the rules, then set the principle them, they all be know what's in the rules then be. When you get problem with the rules then the Constitution very clear on what you can do. In fact, I don't think it's not just Ibrahim Tomido expressed his view. I think some very senior members of APC publicly been disagree with the move, say, we know they follow, we know they test the jurisprudence, we know they push, they advance the laws of our country. With respect, then they regrettable to we all. Because I can make an example to the United States. Republicans, they don't manage for full up the Supreme Court. Through means that Democrats themselves get reason for question. You know, Obama been gets an opportunity for appointing a judge, they don't agree for call her up and all that. So you get 6-3 balance in the highest courts in the US. Imagine if Democrats decide, say, they don't go courts at all because they get problem with the political leanings in the US, in the case of the US, of the courts. I think what's in the president's been referred to is, in a democracy, political maturity requires us to use the democratic institutions. And I just want to clarify this issue of the committee because I don't want to fumble in our host fee say, referee day by this committee. This committee not to referee business. No game, no they play. The outcome of this election is not in dispute.
But what's
the only way for question the dispute of this election have been through the courts and the time don't pass.
Certainly. But what's
now
in a situation?
Look before me, brother.
What's in a situation, for example, there was a report published by the Institute for Governance Reform. Talks about, 444, where you have opposition using the people as shield for escape accountability and all of that. And you have ruling government framing policies and laws as tool for revenge. So it now be like tit for tat. So in a situation where, for example, now we have the deputy leader of the SLPP who doubles as the vice president of the Republic of Sierra Leone, steering that committee that would recommend policies, laws that can be factored into how do we move ahead.
Look, I understand.
That, yes, so how do we deal with that?
And I think, look, I think two things are also important for the people to understand.
Go ahead.
One, the committee is a creation of government and a part of government. Like lawyer Tommy say,
right.
Look, there's a government in Sierra Leone, okay? In fact, the president will be commended that but could say they don't set up commissions or committee there where they're so far away from government, they don't get the power for compel and the power for implement.
Right.
The president said this is so important in running mates, in right-hand man, so that they're not going to starve for resources, they're not going to starve for attention, and the recommendation will get the highest possible platform within the government's infrastructure. So make no mistake. But pay attention, and it invites people you see, let we know, this is not the problem. Let we not make judgments on we people. The vice president is a distinguished Sierra Leonean.
Right.
Nobody know the way me sabi we go point out our vice president say we can't trust him, we don't need our government. So it's important, right? So the president they say I want this to be so important. What would they call, even in civil society days, what would they call for the government set up important institutions? Would they pay attention to who that the chair? Because the chair get the power for compel. So the president don't choose the highest possible person he could choose, apart from himself. Then, if you read the text, it say this committee go include diverse representation, including of international partners. And no say, then they invite some of the international partners they would refer to so right now. These people they also get integrity. It say it will bring civil society. It will bring representatives of professional bodies, including ECSL. This is not to an effort for say, ECSL bad. We know that not to that conversation do with it, but say, these are Sierra Leoneans themselves. Yes, we bother them and sister in our APC, then get questions about the elections, and get their own problem that we then get. The means of adjudicating the one and the is separate. This committee now for look at logistical, operational, and legal framework for say how we go put in place the measure then. So in the future, the questions and the problem will be arise in these conversations, by the way, will not to be part of the legal framework. we be arise, you dey think about the person where you go put inside this community. You don't bring international partners, you don't bring civil society. If you want somebody who get the power for implement this inside government, who do you go put? So the president puts the highest, most distinguished possible person he could put apart from himself is his vice. And that's why you have the vice president chairing that.
What would happen if we continue not forget the opposition at parliament? Because the president also cites something that is very critical and crucial to the development of Sierra Leone. They say SLPP not get two-third majority. Of course, we see that they manifested itself when, Parliament they try for elect a speaker. You see them go over, according to the law, 3 times after, they just go now by simple majority. So there are going to be critical laws. There are going to be entrenched things in the Constitution that might need amendments. We will require 2/3. Now, are we just going to look at, let's just focus on those of us here. Because, by the way, the law makes it for them. They will get the power for do whatever they get for do. So whether or not it's going to be good or bad things that might be passing a parliament, what would the executive make of the decision that parliament is not well constituted because of political grievance, dissatisfaction, or disgruntlement by one particular group? We say northern people are not going to participate. How una they try? Because parliament is, according to many, one of the most, if not the most powerful organ in the state. We get the power for even say, Mr. President, you can impeach you. So how do we deal with that? For you guys in the...
So democracy requires plurality.
Right.
And you require not just, you want to avoid a one-party state. And luckily in us alone, we don't build a democratic culture. Right. The reason we call this the sixth parliament is because we don't get different parliaments in the past with different iterations. I think it's very clear, as I say, the president and possibly love democracy and care deeply about democracy. You just refer to the tone of his speech, the gestures that we are aware say don't make already. As I talk about, even when they announced the results, he started making these gestures. But Mr. Tommy make a point. He say, we come, if you open your hand, the other person self not for clenching fist, right? With the hope, say, that good reason could prevail with we brother and sister in the APC. Now we all get this country. The president make it very clear. I think one of the most powerful lines of the president in that speech, now that paragraph 59, he say, I think I remember say we talk people say let he repeat and he read that again. And he make reference that we don't see in other democracies, in other countries, including in the sub-region and beyond. When people fail for resolve their political differences with maturity, the devastating effects. There are legal implications. Me not a lawyer, I go left to me, they let them handle that. Waiting the president make clear is that for national cohesion, for peace and democracy, we need for Fenway for let we work together. We cannot deprive the people of this country of their representation. The people they elect APC people, they elect them as mayors, they elect them all across this country. For this democrat, the other day I did a radio, somebody said the problem always not the political differences. I said, no, political difference is not a problem. If we all day one side, not a democracy. We cannot have a functional democracy if me and Abdel Timbo agree on everything on the policy. We require Abdel Timbo and me for Kanaya and get, or my comrade Abdul Kagbo, and get a principled debate, but not necessarily be disagreeable. Now, we'll come on at the end of the day, we'll go bind ourselves as comrades, we begin to pick and play together. But the problem is people assume, say, if we disagree on the policy, we'll get for disagree about life, about who that will be. You're not supposed to be zero-sum game. Somebody get for win, somebody get for loss. Not just that, there is a laid-down procedure and institution by which they determine winner and loser. That's what we have used in this case. Yes, even the rights to be upset is also a right. APC, I believe, say I will grant them that right there. But at some point, I think within the president's the tone, the tenor, the content of his speech, and then gestures that way they make, including this reform. Again, I need to remind people that I will say, nothing not especially particularly novel about this committee. After the last election, ECSL being reviewed, a lot of the recommendations the way EU and others may make. And even if you read the EU reports, they will tell you, see, ECSL adopted a recommendation. Those were not provisions of our laws. The president, again, this is why I think the president should be commended for putting the vice president. He just don't elevate them and say, now, let not just review and no more, so just take the reports and review them, but let we elevate them and do them well. So I hope, say, me coming from my own background, I hope, say, especially the good citizens of Sierra Leone will make up the APC. We want the best thing that we all want for this country. We want a thriving democracy where the president don't call for. We want national cohesion. And yes, political difference and disagreement. We'll see reason and say, no, Salon big pass we all. We ego, because some of it is ego, let's be honest. We ego, we for put aside. Some of the issues here we'll get, okay, now one country will get, let we come around the table and let we resolve the issue here in a mature way.
All right. Moving away, Reverend. I mean, to another issue where the president raised in his speech, we are pretty sure say, Chernor acts good each when we talk about this, the woman them. It say, I mean, unprecedented for the first time, we see Parliament now, I mean, get about 30.4% of women directly elected members, about 41 of them from both parties and all of that. And that's a good start, because we saw for the longest of time, women they cry, complain about having, I mean, they always refer to them as the bedrock of the home, the this, the that, plenty of things being ascribed to them, their relevance. But when it comes to I mean, a seat at the table, how do they participate? How can they advance their own cause in decision making? Has always been a crisis, but now we're seeing some gains. Even in the cabinet, there are gains. Out of 29 deputies, we're seeing, I think, about is it 11 or 22 of them women? We've also seen about in the cabinet, the full ministers, I think about 9 or 11. I stand to be corrected. So these are all gains for women in the political arena. What does this present for the development, the future, and the space which Salon the fit for occupy globally in terms of governance?
Definitely, we for make emphasis for say it's very vital for waiting in mean as we push democracy go before. The place of women is so important. Apart from we local laws them, the most recent being the making call and Giwi, because for me it makes sense to me. Yes, that's the Gender Equality and Women's Empowerment Law. We also get international treaties that we don't sign into. And well, apart from the CEDAW, within the continental framework, we get what's popularly they call them the Maputo Protocol. It is actually the protocol to the African Charter on Human and People's Rights, on the rights of women in Africa. We don't sign up to that. And, well, it's interesting. Coincidentally, we just validated the first ever Maputo Protocol report with Salon right. And, well, coincidentally again, Reverend, I don't want to say authored the document, but I served as technical assistant for put the state reports together, which is so important. On Wednesday, we did a symbolic handing over to the Minister of Foreign Affairs. So for me, that's an aspect. I have been very involved in pushing for the place of women in the governance of the country.
Right.
Long before this time, I never knew I was going to be involved in this kind of thing. When I do my postgraduate diploma in education, and make sure say gender in education become my choice in terms of elective. And even at master's level, do a course. People they say, but you're a man, why you go to do women as managers? Because I'm always interested in finding ways and means or solutions how to address this gender gap. And we see things are happening. And so with this new engagement, just almost, you know, it don't even reach 1 year where we enact the law, the GIBI law. But now we see say the implementation is running very fast. But we don't want for celebrate too soon. But we make sure say we put all of the measures in place for make sure say we sustain them. This is a good start. You go to Parliament, you see several women there now, and we look forward to APC also joining. For me, themselves, the woman, the way they elect, on the side and say go join the team. You go to a cabinet, you see plenty women them. So apart from the other arguments we've been on there for say, okay, more we adopt the national character principle in terms of the government, the president choosing in cabinet, but at least that balance between man and woman, we don't begin see the realization of it. And now a huge responsibility is placed on the women. First, because they don't get the opportunity, they complain. Now they have it. For me, let them prove the point to us. Yes, somebody go say they don't get points for proof. No, they have a point to prove. That when we give women the opportunity, they can deliver.
Right.
And for we make this be an opportunity where we will point to say, for this reason, we will bring more women on board. For this reason, we will make sure say the number not only then at this side, but we extend to other areas. And we
would that not be much of a load on the women? Because for the longest of time, I mean, una demand there, we at the middle. Una demand they don't, una don't they lead, and things have not gone well for the country. And we know they talk about say, well, you know, no, give them chance again.
Don't call it a burden on the women. In fact,
or undue pressure, should I put it?
Well, not still see them as undue pressure.
Okay,
they've been asking for it. And all of the arrangements they would make within the country, the voice that we don't raise now for say women and forget opportunity. Internationally, more even take them continentally, we get that kind of situation there. Internationally, we get the same. So the women then forget the opportunity and then foresee them as an opportunity for serve to the best of their ability. We go make we say yes, it was not a regrettable decision. That kind of one for see, like they always push for women in business. We go gladly for see them perform to the best of their ability and show we say yes indeed. Now that kind of tell me they miss, we will not allow them the opportunity.
Right.
When that happens, things them with the impact on development, we will see them kick off.
All right.
Me, I've always maintained one position long before now. Say, if you look at the continent, not just Sierra Leone, but of course Sierra Leone as a microcosm of the continent itself, reflect one particular thing. And at the point of me always on they make say how they treat women them, they reflect on the society who they live in. If we change that approach, even as we don't begin gradually, they make that effort in that direction, they will produce the kind of result we want. But not forget, even with the controversial, is it 2021 census figures, women are still in the majority. The 2015 again, with all of its controversy in 7 years, women are still in the majority. So that bulk of the population, we cannot leave them out in the governance of or run the state. Okay. And not forget. Now, in terms of parliament, well, the running of the government, parliament, the cabinet, we don't see that opportunity for make more women come. But the law not only stop there. Now for both elective and appointive positions.
Including the private sector.
All of it.
Right.
So we also think about that. We don't gain this kind of success. More we now make sure say, we make it gets good foundation we go reflect in every sector of the society.
Across the board. All right. So, Lawyer Tommy, we're moving away. There's a semblance of us moving away from the too many platitudes. Women are the bedrock of our homes. We always don't view them as a voting bloc, as the one that they're just the born for we Bokuna village so that we'll get cheap labor for we farm them and all of that. We're moving away from that. We're now creating that platform where we have to view ourselves as equals in pushing development, in ensuring that society is built, in laying the tracks for, going at the pathway we want for go. Is this really something at this point now? Reverend is saying it's too early to celebrate. Should we as a nation be looking at this as, there's this bright star already in our governance architecture?
Absolutely. I think it's a great start, I should say, because it's a start. Let's face it. I just come on East Africa. If you go Kenya, to be honest, this discussion about women's empowerment, they encourage like care. Because what they then do, and really that's not the point I want to make, they invest in women and girls for acquire an education. Empowerment. So what they see now with 30.4% or so elected, and many women getting appointed to cabinet positions and deputy ministerial positions, and hopefully many boards and commissions. And I say this, people let them watch this show, let them remember this. No matter how poor you do, now there's a free quality education. What's important most now access. They're not going to drive a PK again for school fees. Get uniform for work, go school, and I hope say, really now this time, quick advocacy. Government for put out a policy, they say, uniform or no uniform. Everybody should be allowed for going to school. This whole thing about uniform, let it be discretionary. To be honest, I think it should be discretionary. If possible, afford them, great. But if never afford them, let them not stop them. The extra charge is not for stop picking for going to school. The humiliation for money, for badge, for this and all of that, we have to make a decision because I have learned that the most important people in access. After that, now the peer influence and the community and all of that can make it go before. So, what do they say at this level? This is the highest level decision-making body in government. It not go happen if the people not get a chance to go class 1, perhaps even preschool, take down primary, go high school, and go university and acquire education. But it's not just about getting a university degree. It's actually about getting skills. Take voc. Not to all money for go get degree. Right. If you sabi plant, you go and learn plant. It's just about empowerment. Now, when that happens, which they see will be very easy. In fact, we'll go stop for talk about this. But for now, because of the gap, we don't create, and I have to respectfully disagree with the Reverend. I'm not thinking so much against it for proof. They should be held to the same standards as men. Men have led this country for God knows how long. They don't fail over and over and again. We don't ask them to prove anything. Women have nothing to prove. They just have to serve and deliver on waiting their ministries and require them for deliver. But the one thing I have to say is laws matter. But I tell you what, it's leadership that makes all the difference. When them passed the Jewish Act, the Public Elections Act, people are saying, no, that Jewish Act, they not going to create that percentage of people in cabinet. It's discretionary. What we are saying, in fact, we don't even need laws for get the president, we get all the power for make appointments, for appoint 50% of men. In 2018, my open letter to the president was simple. Make sure, you can make history. This is the thing. When you are in those positions of a total population of 7.58 million people, God make you president, believe in me, it's a platform for them immortalize yourself. So that we left this world, and as of course, we all get for left this world, there's something people say about you positively. I wrote back then that you have a chance for make sure your cabinet get 50% of women. Of course, people thought it was unrealistic. I get it. But it's possible. Do laws to make sure before they left, Parliament get 50% of women. That was the goal. That was what I wanted. Back then, we didn't get to 50%. But if you look from 12% in 2018 to 30.4% elected, that's massive. And then you see number of women getting appointed and all of that, and I hope more will be appointed in other appointed positions. That's phenomenal, right? But as I said at the beginning, all of that really important. What's more important for me is for make sure that we keep women and girls in school, support them, and keep them, retain them, give them skills, and empower them. Whether they reach, not to all man want to be minister or go parliament. Some man just want to get in business. Some man for the get a saloon, the one for the doing farming. Let's make sure that we bring all of them on board. Because at the end of the day, believe you me, and what's going to happen, I'll tell you, unfortunately, you get a point, or fortunately, in fact, speaking for myself, fortunately, you get to get a situation where women, they get for lead in many, many sectors of this country economy. Because unfortunately, many of the young men and boys, we're losing them to drugs. That's a separate matter altogether.
Right.
That's a thing. We will not even begin to address it seriously. But the future for women and girls is bright. And I think what we have seen with these appointments is something really, really worth commending.
All right. Coming from your background, first off, I would love to ask this question. I mean, how much of an elation at this point you feel as a champion for women and girls?
Thank you so much. The presidents say that as he look at the parliament, he was filled with pride. It's a pride that I share too, because me an activist. We particularly don't dedicate me significant part of my life for advanced girls and women's rights. I think the important thing about this issue is it's not just about the pride, it's about getting it right. And the president say, you cannot advance as a country if you not include particularly a group where now more than half of your country. And by inclusion, not just for make position and get them position, but now by waiting Mr. Tommy Bindi talk from the roots. It's about education, choice at birth, the decisions they would make, how they distribute resources at home, how would they treat women at the workplace, and all of that. In this moment, though, as a nation, I think both of the major parties and of course all the parties deserve a lot of credit. Mr. Tommy is spot on. It's leadership. These presidents look at this particular issue. He wanted to build a legacy for being known for in work, in breaking the glass ceiling. To be honest with you, a lot of people in we own field who are commons been skeptical. In fact, even after the bill, there were many wise people who wrote big articles suggesting that we not get able for hit this benchmark who been done set for both the 30% across the board. Keep in mind, for Parliament, we do more than 100% increase because we were about 12%. Now we are 30+% of women. And not to just that you have leadership and you have the participation of the political parties. The APC, for example, deserve credit because they also belong constitutes, they belong right inside their own constitution as well as the SLPP. So we see progress as a country on this issue. It's not a partisan issue. It's a collective national progress. The president set a vision, he gave the instruction, and then when it comes to the appointment of in cabinet, I think we need to take a moment and to really applaud the incredible transformation that we are seeing. For many years, many of we don't push for and call for, and by the way, I say regrettable I will not get a woman on this panel. But we don't push for, we don't call for a society that is reflective of the demography of our country. And that reflection, they means we forget women there at the table as CEOs, as ministers and all. President Bio, do not just that. It's taken to the next level. Young women. The youngest cabinet minister, female, right now, 32-year-old Salimatu Monomaba. You get minister of higher education. Not so for saying a small ministry there, because we just put some token. No, important ministries given to young women for lead. I go cabinets now and feel the sense of elation as a Sierra Leonean. that the president, by the way, the law not even require the president, the law encourage him. But this president, now him do the GW bill, now him don't do the gender strategy, now him don't call himself a he for she, they don't bestow that title on him. And constantly in conversations. Keep in mind also, my brother, that not so just in the appointment of cabinet, but the percentage increase is reflective in overall appointments. So I think it's a new dawn in our country. And I think that things like this will provide the basis for let we all say it is not all bad. Oftentimes with a minor on the majors, with a major on the minors, they focus too much on like the one thing where we at 1-4 and other things. But as a country, as a people, this election, we get a lot of things to be proud of. And one of them is we get the youngest parliamentarian ever elected in 20s. In our parliaments, voted for by the people of this country. We get women they're making up, over 30%. And by the way, these are just the first step. Less than a year after we don't pass this law. Imagine now we're getting young, dynamic, progressive people in cabinet and in parliament across all parties, now responsible for making the next set of laws. The end with the free education and other things that we don't put in place with a systematic and structural transformation. The future of this country, I said the other day in our social media, Sierra Leone can be perfected. This is why we came into government. It's that positive spirit. I think that's what we're seeing on this issue of gender progress, and the president and leadership, I think deserves to be applauded.
All right. We not forget the one that we don't watch. We on channel 33 on the STV channel 399, listening to we on FM 101.7 across the country, and also on our way they follow we on www.ayvnews.com or using the AYV mobile app. We still solicit on our views and continue to share them with us on the AYV News Facebook page. Shortly, we go join Suri Ibrahim Amara for go through some of the comments them. But like always they do, they apologize. Time will never permit us to go through all of your messages. We can only take few of them. Please, we'll always get for beer with we. But just before we take some of them comments and they'll come back. I mean, another issue the president raised, he advanced the 5 big game changer, the way he put now a manifesto and say, those are the things that his government would prioritize going forward into the next 5 years. We need for feed saloon. Saloon as a nation, in every global ranking we don't come out, and they say, we belong to that category, so we are one of the hungriest nations. And the president say, well, it is time that we able to feed we own people. Looking at many don't they say, now we don't follow governance across the globe, don't they say, globalization appears for the failed nations now. Now I think it's about protectionism. How do we protect our own? How do we take care of our own? So, feed saloon, creating jobs, 500,000 as promised. Where would this set saloon, or how do we take off as a nation in all of this? I know agriculture is one of the tools being pushed forward and all of that. So where do we take off? On what airfield, Reverend?
The suggestions they vary. But of course, we want to emphasize the point, say, that's emphasis on the agenda of the president, feed saloon, is so paramount that everybody, whatever influence you get, because we also for not this, say one man okay for do this,
right?
But whatever influence you get, you're supposed to support this idea. Reflecting a little on Sierra Leone's history, I will tell you, say, time there was when we were exporting with staple food to other countries, in addition to other things. But things don't go bad somehow. So if government, the president is saying this is an emphasis feed saloon, it's something we forsake with two hands. Somebody will tell you first of all, say, well, we need a know-how for we get involved in mechanized farming. So building the human capacity in that direction is very important. But at the same time, more we get, then fix them. we go make sure say we get involved in mechanized farming, and we will for at least get returns in the quickest possible time. Because you know, you talk about like starting from scratch or all over. Speed is required, and therefore we put a lot of effort into it. But you cannot get speed or get the required result if the resource is not there.
Right.
So whatever we do in terms of we budget reallocation for make we generate the income, for get this thing sorted out, we need for do one. And it becomes a strong appeal to everybody we get something for do with this particular sector. May not be business as usual. We don't get government in, government out, where they always say we get this kind of agenda, one for do this thing. But the human factor, the human resource, we forget this thing going forward, then he always failed the country. And this time, we don't want that kind of situation there. If you are made, for instance, Minister of Agriculture, do something for what you sold. And be that person who will say, no matter what happens, we will champion this thing. And whatever role you get for play in the agriculture ministry, or even as a partner from outside, let us do it such that the people this time are going to benefit. Not to read on more than for the tell story, say, we are now net importer of rice, or we make everything we pull them from outside.
Right.
I listened to a clip recently where somebody talk about waiting make things and they happen this way. Where like for make you now begin invest for local production, you get the importation of rice as is something where they take primary position because this thing about capitalism, we need for watch that day. Such invested interest then they we go on for make this thing fail because it's a local initiative for say we do one now for ourselves. Somebody they out here and they say if it happens,
and they lost business.
Now they lost business.
Okay.
And so they can sponsor everything to ensure it fails.
All right.
So we get for what we get for open we eye, like how they can say in Creole, like mountain fat food, because this thing so vital to the people of Samuel, listen, one thing.
Yeah.
The moment you're able to take care of yourself, it becomes a standpoint which I can for speak on other issues. But if you're never for feed yourself, people can just despise you, even if you get the best of ideas.
All right.
So looking at it from that kind of perspective, we for Tim up on this say this thing not for fail.
All right, Lawyer Tommy, very recently we witnessed Usai, the climate being give the world, the slice the supply of yabas, for example, onions. And plenty of people will say, oh, it be just limited to saloon. But we still say it be a global challenge because of the weather and all of that. And now, when governments, when the Minister of Finance be present the supplementary budget, they say subsidy on fuel, it's not sustainable because it's huge and government needs resources. And so when they remove the subsidy, we see an instant increment in the price of fuel at the country. But again, now in the president's speech, the president say, I'll read directly from his speech. First and foremost, feed saloon will ignite agricultural productivity, safeguard food security, and foster inclusive economic growth, laying the foundation for sustained prosperity. And for plenty of people, we're always angry. In normal saloon man, we're always angry because food not there. Also if we go every day, forget something. It's also challenging. We spend over $200 million annually for import rice. And plenty of people say, we get fast arable land. We can grow what we eat. We're able to feed. And we don't get different deadlines as to when Salon will become. Salon for able feeding safe. Under the late Pakaba, we had the 2007 story. Under the former Ernest by Kroma, we know we get the issue of having, we were able to feed ourselves as a nation. I think it was in 2020 latest. So we've had all of these deadlines, but we've not been able to meet them. We continue to be a nation we angry. We continue to be a nation where they produce, but when you go to neighboring countries, they see what they produce, but we don't get them and we market them for it and all of that. So how do we handle this as a nation?
Fantastic. The point where you end on now and start with, which is that And most people don't even know that we produce a lot. People in Fiso now, they produce rice now. Yeah.
Right.
We they produce rice, we they produce plenty things. But if you go to Balamoya and see them big truck there, they come.
Right.
Buy with rest, buy with produce and all of that. Perhaps not they produce enough for serve the country. But the truth not that, for let we produce and make sure say we get enough for feed and legitimately export, we need to do a lot more. In all of this, now they look at the present big 5 priorities.
Yeah.
They see how we were there in project to go to call theory of change, the linkages between all, and among all of them. You understand them? You look at food, you look at jobs, you look at human capital development, you look at public service and technology. Person will tell you, say, obviously, if you utilize the youth thing, knowledge and skills, and of course, for utilizing, they get for getting the capacity, human capital development. You either give them jobs where they work in agriculture, and the result of that, they go produce food. But then you need the public service for do the right thing, even in terms of procurement, the technical capacity. They only forget that one day. And obviously, the technology and all of that, they create the platform for life. If you grow rice or cocoa, coffee, vegetables, they will use apps now for connect, for buy a cable fruit now and buy something from Kabbalah and through technology. So it's interconnected. That's really what. Let's break this down. This whole thing about politics, party A, party B. We all get choices for make, and we're so passionate about the choices that they make, the colors they represent. But at the end of the day, whether you call it democracy, you call it this, you get the fundamentals of life. If we not get them, will politics not get forever sweet? Why make possible a lost election or a win election, they cry or they jubilate like he one court? Now, because somehow they give the impression, say, when my own side don't win, at least in many cases, not in all cases, I'll get forget lane, forget job, I'll get lane for, make ends meet. But if you're able to grow it to the eat, it affordable, right? Dependable supply of what they eat. And jobs day, you understand? Education, healthcare services, all of those things, a day for the most part. I can't stop going back to East Africa as an example. You go to countries like Ethiopia, not to say their minimum wage way higher than we all know. It's that their services, them, healthcare, education, public transportation, housing, they're not freaking expensive like Salome. So sometimes I can argue, say government also complicit in all this thing about this mad rush for thief public funds, no justification. But if you work in office and they pay you 600,000 euros, you get for on transport, you get for spend 50,000 per day. It's a problem. You get which encouragement you get for even report corruption. In fact, they give opportunity, you join for thief. So there's a role for government for addressing things, but we cannot address those things if first you not feed the people. You have to empower the people. And the one thing I like to talk about empowerment, not to government they employ all manner of states. It's not possible. US, the last time I checked, the federal government employ about 13% or so of the population. Maybe you add the state employment, give or take 30%, 40%. These are just rough numbers. I don't have the data. 60% now self-employed people, private sector. But you are never, ever going to achieve that if people not get the capacity for create jobs for themselves and employ other people. It's a way we have to unlearn as people. But that unlearn is not going to go on to empower ourselves. The way we think of with lives, generally, unfortunately, and it goes back to decades now, go school, go college, done college, the employee in our office, you can't work. No. We know for now begin learn, say, go school, sabi read and write, acquire skills, acquire knowledge. If your knowledge now for make more now for you know florist, you know gardener, acquire skills, knowledge. The most important thing is you have a place in society. What do you do for a living? That's the question that we should start asking instead of whose degree you get. Don't get me wrong. I got plenty degrees, so I know they minimize the importance of degree. But the most important thing is for growing country and economy, people have to find a place in society. What do you offer? What skills do you have? Right. That is the most important thing. And through these 5 priorities, my hope is that we can restructure the public service, feed ourselves as a people. That's very important. But more importantly, make sure we continue to invest in our human resource so that we go transform this country.
All right. So, Mr. Minister, I mean, there are a few things we then two gentlemen here to highlight. I mean, Reverend talked about how we need to incentivize the locals for ensure, say, we able to pay attention to we say we can do this, and then it come in. And Tommy talked about the fact that over time we just don't feel, say, certification is education. It's only when you produce certificate that you are educated. So we're missing the true essence of education where, I mean, we know there are gaps here. How do we train people to go in and fill those gaps? But we can only do so when we belly full, when we don't eat. That's the time we can get all of those things. But the question I want to ask is, at what cost are we going to achieve this? Feed salon, job creation, I mean, the youth employment scheme and all of that. At what cost? And what are the strategies in place to achieve all of this?
Important for the family and house understand the presidents in Big 5. One no importance passing other. But can you say, part of the reason we salon for be excited is the president don't lay forward a true national transformation agenda. That's the add up. And I want to let people understand what's in the Big 5. One is a low feed salo. 2, human capital development. Again, that's a big word, but I want people to understand. These points all want to make so it inside human capital development because it say focus on gender equality, but for nurture the skills required for the industries of the 21st century. I mean, all these points want to make so now the president summarize so. Human capital development, it focus on skills. Then he add, it's a youth employment because you not just want to do skills for the 21st century, it's a lot of focus on youth employment. And then he say technology, we live in the technology age, and infrastructure initiative. Then he say if you do all let's say you're not going to function of public service. All my projects say salary and civil service and employ all so we not get public service. It's a lot of reform the public service. Judge a man not just by what he don't say, but what he don't do in the past. We all, including me, we spend most of my life the advocate for free education. When the president adopted free education, many people didn't believe, say, it was a bridge too far, that he was selling us a white elephant, that it was a project that we will never achieve. But this president put in place the mechanisms, find the resources, you go manage, fund primarily through the national budgets, and then he mobilized resources across the world. And today, we don't achieve gender parity in education. At primary and secondary level, we are ahead of basically the rest of the subcontinent. We don't see incredible gains in quality, retention, pass rate on every single indicator. So judge a person, not just by what he didn't say, but by what he didn't do. This president don't put in place a 21st century. Part of some of the criticism of Sierra Leone in the past is we don't get a national agenda. What do we focus on? This new direction manifesto is a national agenda. Nobody know the way go say, oh, me are they against that. You know they're against feeding. So it all appoints terrific people in each of their ministries. The signature one, when I feed education, feed the people with the number 1, Dr. Musa Baka. Incredibly talented young dynamic Sierra Leonean. We go able for lead. But not just do that, he set up an initiative as well, where he bring the distinguished Dr. Kande Koloyomkela. So you don't put together the team. So you ask, how do we get to this? Vision, personnel, institutional framework. I could say that in a radio say, ideas lead, money will follow. The problem normally is we don't get structured ideas. This president don't put a structured idea. You don't put some of the best possible people where you can find at this country say, who can put together this infrastructure. Me as a positive person, I get faith, I get belief, I get confidence that we not just get the agenda, we don't get the framework, and we now get the leadership, and we get the team. And I want to let the people of Salone judge the presidents by as he ask them. You not judge me earlier, you judge me at the end of it, by the outcome. And a confidence say, not just the agenda, the team, the structure, we're going to mobilize all the resources we need, including your local resources, for lead Salone into the fourth industrial revolution.
When the president announced that, it didn't have the announcement of history already, that the single most ambitious program ever in this country are the free quality education.
Fact.
Achieved. Get 21% instantly at the time.
Now
it's a free Salone.
Of all over the world. All man they pay attention to.
I think about 10% to agriculture, or we budget. Now, with all waiting also the pronouncement we make for you for continual public office, you have to go to the farm. You must ensure you get farm. All of those were ways for ensure we're able to feed ourselves, or we're able to encourage others for going to agriculture. Is that still, in the motion?
The Feed Salone initiative is a comprehensive initiative. Not so just for say, you go make farm now. That's a part of it. You know? Now for me and you two take the lead, but civic education are part of that. Now for people to understand their relationship with the land. People to understand, say, what you need for do. Not to all need for get quote and tie degree. You can get quote and tie degree and still go make farm. So now a comprehensive plan.
Right.
It includes skills, because for even do farming properly, you need 21st century skill for understand which soil you for use, which fertilizer you for use, how you combine all of that. Youth foresee agriculture, because agriculture is still the largest employer in a Salone.
Right.
For understand and say, not to a place where for look down on, but for make a may be attractive. So you see, it's all interconnected. You need technology for able to feed the country. You need innovation, and you need a public service with functional. So on every single one of these, the president thought holistic, and I believe, say, when it comes to the Feed Salone initiative, not to what you say is true, we all need for but the role of government, if you talk to the minister or you talk to Dr. Kanda Yomkela, now for set the parameters, lay the framework, ensure the enabling environment, give people the tools, and we they come in as civic education for let people understand all of this. Let you get a groundswell there. Let every Sierra Leonean take and say, as part of my national pride, la grow res, la grow yabas, la grow pepe, because this is who I am. Now that plays a present once agree.
All right, gentlemen, continue for stay with us. We quickly have to move over to our studio 2 and join Sori Ibrahim Amara with some of the messages them we will not send on Facebook. Sori, good evening. And what are the messages saying?
Yes, good evening, Samuel Wise Bangura. Some of the text messages here this evening. The first one is from Newman Anthony Levy. It says, the discussion is good and it fosters democracy. People should give their opinions about issues. Sierra Leone has made progress in democracy. Another message here from Idrissa Touré. I sense maturity in Chernor as Minister of Communication and Civic Education. Hope he stays that way. Le Ino join the cabal. Another one here from Abdul Fufana. The country did not need peace. We need truth and justice. Another one here is from Abu B. Kamara. Ibrahim Tommy, the issue is about the entire elections process, not only about the presidential election. And another message here is from Jonathan Silla. I swear to God, most of us are not honest to ourselves, and we are not saying the truth. A former vice president was sacked by his former boss, and most of we do not say anything about it. What a shame to our democracy. Another one here is, Reverend, I had in an interview done by AYV, either a day or two before the day the ECSL boss read out the presidential results. And in that interview, you said, new has been in analyzing elections results, especially presidential results, including the 2023 election results, and all your analysis have been correct in no way. New will go wrong. Where is your opinion? New really go wrong this time. And this message comes from Solomon Bihe. Another one here is from Ishmael Sarah. Why APC not be amend the electoral laws for 11 years in power? The ECSL is using the same laws. Another one here reads, Minister Chernor is exceptional. His analysis is giving hope to us, the youth, and well-meaning Sierra Leoneans. And this comes from Momo Bishi. And the last message here for tonight comes from Amadou Kagbo, and it reads, in support of Reverend's statements that women have points to prove, we all have agreed that men have failed us. Ever since, that's why we have been crying for women participation. If they do not prove themselves as better options, then what is the essence? So these are some of the messages.
Thank you very much, Sir Ibrahim Amara, for some of the messages. Then again, we apologize. We're not able to read even one thought of the messages the owner said, because we have hundreds of them this evening on Facebook. We apologize. But quickly, as we try to wrap up this conversation, Reverend, what will be your part in short, and also your quick response to some of the comments then we read?
Yeah, I understand this thing about new and say new will go wrong. I do an interview. That for me is not clear. I don't know what the person is saying, but probably if the person clarify the issue for us until we respond to that.
Right.
Of course, well, you know, when conversation they go on, everybody gets right for state a position. This person say, in support my own view, for say the women have a point to prove. Well, my brother say he not think so. So now conversation, and so it happen. In the context of how we converse for promotes what you call democracy, you allow opinions as long as it is within the law. You're not breaking the law for say this or that.
Right.
Somebody did say we for be honest, and indeed, me always am in conversation. They appeal to every Sierra Leonean. It no matter what's your opinion on a particular matter, choose and remain for be honest. When you're consistent in presenting the issues, as long as it founded on the truth, it is going to stand the test of time.
Okay.
So with all of what did happen across the country, so me go continue for appeal to every Sierra Leonean. May we continue for engage. More listen to each other. Are convinced some of the problems that we'll get in our country is stem from the facts they not get time for listening to each other. No. So what they happen, you get the negative vibes now from the social media. Also, person can day from a distance. It throws something way very detrimental to the rest of the country. But if we, on the ground, one-on-one, we engage each other for address issues, it will go a long way for make we operate peacefully and get the country going forward.
Thank you.
Me, for me last word, now one grain salon we get. I will make every effort for keep them together, and what we'll do waiting will make sure say the best happen in our country.
Thank you very much. Lawyer Tommy, 2 minutes. Your party shot.
No, I listened to the text messages. The person said the whole challenge not to just about the presidential election, but again, as you have said, if APC become a court, if I don't see waiting at the gripe, but waiting me know is the major issue at the presidential result, and that mean no another estate. But we not go. I not go end if I not go back to the point to begin with. You know, it's a bad precedent for let you boycott state process because let's be honest, APC are the main opposition. And the only other party, at least for now, we get a realistic chance of forming a government of this country. Keep in mind, 2007, Christina Top then, at the time, illegally invalidated votes from 477 police stations. SFP complained, but they still come to parliament and then governance. 2012, SFP complained, but they still participate. 2018, APC then self-complained about 2018, but they participate, and we see the results of their participation. 2018, you get complaint, you stay out. It's such a bad precedent because if in the future APC win election, the SFP says, so we get concerns, you are not participating. You know, that state will get, it's bad, and we have to say it as it is.
Okay.
That is not to minimize the concerns or the demands that they make. It is to make the point that make those demands and seek to resolve those whilst you are in office. You understand? But in a democracy, we need to make sure say people can get their views and hear their views and allow constructively debate the issues and push the country go before.
All right, Minister Chernor, 2 minutes, your party.
I want to reiterate the words of His Excellency to Parliament, this famous statesmanly speech we give, paragraph 55. Our individual egos must yield to the greater national cause, and our quest for power must never overshadow our deep-rooted desire to be a government that genuinely serves the people. Our purpose transcends personal enrichment or fleeting fame. It is firmly grounded in pursuing our nation's and people's collective well-being. A message to all the people that we listen to, we brother and sister, and APC, the people that were non-partisan, is that now we all get this country. We can disagree, but we don't need to be disagreeable. We will always maintain the opportunity for us to talk to each other. And that right now, if you take a moment, like how one of the songs that will be in the radio, they go school, will be the sing, they say, count your blessing, name them one by one. It will surprise you, all the good things that we get. If you take a moment and think about Salone, there's a lot to be grateful for. There's a lot for appreciate about this country, and even these elections. And maybe if we focus on that, like how the president called on we, and put Salone ahead, we will find the common ground for our move forward.
All right. Thank you very much, Chernor, Minister of Information and Civic Education, Lawyer Ibrahim Tomi, Executive Director, Center for Accountability and the Rule of Law, Reverend Juldeh Jalloh, Communications Director, National Commission for Democracy. It's been a pleasure having all three of you here, gentlemen. And many thanks to those of you who sent in your messages. Those of you whose messages we couldn't read, we apologize. With a big time not permit we for go through all the messages them day, but we value our input. We make always with the ask una for make those inputs and with conversations in cause and the help for shape and gets una into with conversations that we will set. Until we meet again next week here with a fresh edition. The show has been AYV on Sunday. My name is Samuel Wise Bangura, and up next is our AYV Primetime News. Take care of yourself and have a lovely night.